Coming up, we continue exploring World Showcase and travel across the globe to China. This is Beyond the Kingdoms for Sunday, July 23rd, 2017. Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of Beyond the Kingdoms. I am your host David and I'm joined by my sister Vanessa.
Hi everyone.
And we've got another great episode in store for you. We are continuing the very popular Exploring World Showcase series. This is one of our fan favorites, I must say. But before we get into all that, I'd like to invite you to our website at beyondthekingdoms.com. There you will find news articles, reviews, and more. A ton of news came out of the D23 Expo last week, and we've got full recaps of all the new exciting additions coming to Walt Disney World, including the Tron roller coaster, Guardians of the Galaxy. So if you need a full recap, head to our website. You'll get a full recap.
It's so exciting. I cannot wait.
It's a good time to be a Disney fan, I must say. And finally, if you'd like to keep the Disney conversation going with us in between episodes, make sure you follow us on social media. You can like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. There'll be links to all of those channels in the description below. Okay, before we get into the episode, we've got some results from a recent survey we did. We asked you, our viewers, to tell us what your favorite dessert party at Walt Disney World is. This was particularly put out there because one of our big fans, Loretta, wanted to know. So Loretta, this is for you.
So I have the results and they are in 5th place. We have the original Illuminations Sparkling Dessert Party. This is before the Frozen Ever After edition.
I think it started this week, the new Frozen one.
In number 4 is Star Wars Galactic Spectacular Dessert Party. In 3rd place, we have Happily Ever After Dessert Party at the Magic Kingdom. And this was surprising to me. In 2nd and in 1st place, we have an actual tie. And it's for the Christmas and Halloween dessert party.
Yeah, during the parties.
During the party of dessert party for the party.
Yeah. I was really surprised by that because I always feel that that's the worst because you have to pay for the ticket into the party and then pay for the dessert party and then it gets a little expensive. I would have thought Happily Ever After would have been number 1, but there you go, Loretta. Apparently, Magic Kingdom's where it's at for dessert parties.
I currently think that with this new Frozen one, that would be at the top of my list.
Yeah. Now we've got a new one for you guys. We want to ask you guys what your favorite film in World Showcase is. Obviously, our first choice is Reflections of China, which we're going to talk about in today's episode, which will be getting an update. It's one of the bits of news that we got from the D23 Expo. They're developing a new 360 camera that's all digital. So the current Reflections of China will soon be replaced. But we want to know what's your favorite between that or Impressions de France in France, obviously, Oh Canada, and the old Spirit of Norway film that is no longer in the Norway Pavilion, sadly.
It was after the attraction. So when you would get off the attraction, they would lead you into this film.
So tell us in the comments below which of those 4 is your favorite, and we'll let you know the results on that in a few weeks. Okay, so let's jump into 5 fast facts about the China Pavilion in Epcot. So the China Pavilion opened along with Epcot on October 1st, 1982. The current Reflections of China film replaced the original Wonders of China on May 22nd, 2003. Some people don't realize that it got updated.
I didn't.
This pavilion offers 3 dining options. You've got 1 table service, 1 quick service, and a food and beverage cart. There are 2 forms of entertainment in China, one of them being the Jeweled Dragon Acrobats, one of my favorites, and you can also meet Mulan. And finally, this is the only pavilion in World Showcase that its gallery showcases another international Disney park. Both France and Japan do not have any sort of gallery or trace of representation of their parks. So this is kind of unique and special here in China. Okay, so let's jump into talking about China. I always like to start with a little bit of details about architecture in the Epcot version and what it's inspired from in the actual country. And when you first come to China, you can't miss it. The big thing you'll notice first is this giant gate, and it's on your left-hand side if you're walking from Norway. This is called the Gate of the Golden Sun. This is an example of a paifang, which can be found at the entrance of many temples, but also at the entrance of a lot of non-religious buildings. So some universities in China will have a gate like this, and they're dotted everywhere. I think there's hundreds of them in China, and they've been around for thousands of years. It's usually an arch or a gateway into, the building, into a temple or a university. And some people believe that these gates were loosely inspired by similar ones that were in ancient India. So some people think that artists and architects traveled through India, saw a similar kind of gateway into their temples, and developed their own version and added their own Chinese embellishments and detailing to them. Yeah, really fascinating. Now, the style of these gateways will differ. They'll vary, but usually a lot of them tend to have red pillars. And they'll have different plaques that show off Chinese calligraphy, usually, in the center. And they always will have tiled roofs, with mythical creatures on top. And this one is meant to, some people say it's an exact replica of one that you can see in Beijing, but I've looked at so many and they do look quite similar throughout. So I'm not 100% sure if it is a replica, but it is very beautiful. And you can't miss it. It's huge. And then when you walk past that, you'll notice a little garden to your right. And then there's that long pathway into the giant circular temple. Now, this is almost a near exact replica of the Hall of Prayer for Good Harvest, which can be found in the Temple of Heaven complex outside of Beijing. So this is one of their most famous religious sites in mainland China. The original temple in China was constructed between 1406 and 1420, and the emperor who commissioned this is the same emperor who commissioned the building of the Forbidden City in Beijing. So this was kind of all built at the same time period. The real temple in China was the location of a very special ritual and ceremony that took place. Twice a year, the emperor would travel from the Forbidden City to this complex, with his entourage, and he would perform a series of prayers for good harvest so that the country, economically would do well, that people would do well. And so it was very, very important. Nowadays, it's open to the public and you can visit it. And this version here at Epcot is stunning. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite kind of monuments, I think, in Epcot because it's so detailed and so authentically done with respect and all that. Now, outside, before you go into the temple, you'll see a very small marble relief, kind of at a slant on the steps. This is a condensed version of what you'll see in China, because the one in China, the stairway is huge. It's massive. I think there's kind of 3 sections to it. And on that marble relief, you'll see a depiction of a dragon, which is very important in Chinese culture. You'll see it throughout the pavilion at Epcot. You'll see it in China a lot. This one in particular has 4 legs and 5 claws on each leg. And usually that means it's a representation of the emperor. It's the 5-claw symbol in particular. And the Chinese dragon, will sometimes also signify power, strength. That's why it's kind of tied in with the emperor. And the symbolism continues inside. So when you go inside, you'll see that there's lots of different, the detail is exquisite in here. And all of the symbols that are in there, both in the real version and the Epcot version, it's all about this balance between earth and heaven. And in Chinese culture, there's different representations of squares as a symbol of earth and circle as a symbol of heaven. And you'll notice on the inside of the temple, there's sections of the roof that are square beams on top of, and then on top of that will be like a circular beam, and it's all about the connection between the two. You'll also notice both here and Epcot and the real thing, there's 4 main pillars in the inside portion of this temple. Those represent the 4 seasons of the year. The real version has then like a series of 12 pillars in the middle and then 12 pillars outside, one of them representing the 12 months of the year and the second representing the 2 12-hour periods in the year. So it's all about time here. Yeah. I think here at Epcot you get the 4 and the 12 and that's it, because it is condensed down a little bit. You'll also notice on the floor here at Epcot that there's, at the center of the circular stone work on the floor, there's 9 kind of pie slices of stone. And again, Chinese numerology usually uses the number 9 to symbolize the emperor and strength and all that. And then my favorite part is if you look up to the top of the roof, you'll see this beautiful, huge gold medallion, and you'll see a dragon, again, representing the emperor, and he is next to a Chinese phoenix. In Chinese culture, the Chinese phoenix usually represents the empress of China. So the appearance of both is about marriage, balance, and both the emperor and empress of China.
Harmony. basically.
All about harmony. So the whole thing is about harmony between
Balance.
people, between earth and heaven, and Epcot's version is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
It really is.
Okay, so then past all that, you'll enter the little waiting area before going into Reflections of China, which is one of my favorite Circle Vision films, I think.
Yeah.
Of Disney.
Definitely.
I know a lot of people think other things, like they love Canada and all that, but I really like this one.
With that said, let's go into discussing Reflections of China. Now, the original, which was called Wonders of China, was particularly intriguing to guests in the 1980s because most Western people had never seen some of the places that were featured in the film. And to really understand that, we have to understand our relationship with China. So let's go back in time.
Yeah, a little quick timeline.
So it really all starts in the 70s. Okay. So in 1971, the ping pong team becomes the first Americans to visit China since the communists took over.
So yeah, what happened in Forrest Gump was somewhat true.
Yeah.
Forrest Gump might not have been there, but that whole story about the American ping pong team was accurate and was very important diplomatic move by the Americans.
It was. And in the same year, Nixon visited China. And for the first time, he established the start of a new relationship between our two countries. The 70s became a negotiation period and a building period for our countries to become friends.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is very symbolic. Towards the end of the decade, on March 1st, 1979, we established embassies in both countries. So we had an embassy in China and they had an embassy in the United States. This kind of segues into the filming of Wonders of China, which began in 1981. So these political events and this relationship we established really is a significant kind of lead-in to Disney's relationship with China and building the relationship and filming this.
It kind of opens the door for Imagineers to start talking to government officials finally.
I think it's hard for people nowadays to really remember the separation we had, especially newer generations.
And the irony of it all now, considering modern day politics, when you look at all this.
Yeah. So before filming began, the Chinese government had some requests, okay? They wanted Imagineers to avoid filming places like Tibet.
Yeah, lots of controversy.
Naturally. And they were skeptical about them filming the Great Wall and wanted filmmakers to kind of be supervised. So the Chinese government weren't going to let Imagineers just kind of roam China on their own and do what they wanted. So wisely, Disney decided to smooth things over by letting them have a special screening of Fantasia for Chinese officials. And apparently that's what did the trick.
Yeah.
The mouse always helps out.
The mouse always does it.
With that, after, they've established this nice relationship with them, they've done the screening. Then the Imagineers were allowed to shoot in more locations.
Yeah, they kind of loosened the reins on them.
So after its release at Epcot, the film then played in Circle Vision Theater at Tomorrowland and Disneyland.
Which I never realized. That's quite fascinating.
And it actually ran there for a significant amount of time, from 1984 to 1996.
Yeah, because I think before it was America the Beautiful, then this China movie, and then they put America the Beautiful back in. This is now what's currently Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters in Disneyland.
I think, again, the reason why we don't see the significance of it, in these generations is because, back then it was a really big deal to open up this conversation with China.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating to me is that Imagineers approached both China and the Soviet Union to build pavilions in World Showcase. And what's really fascinating is that the Soviet Union requested that Disney would put a lot of communist propaganda, and Disney said, hell no, because Disney was very specific to not add political aspects into all of these countries. And China, being another communist country, was very smart, I think, because they said, we don't want symbolism, like symbols of communism in the pavilion. We want to emphasize more of the ancient culture so that they can paint a good picture of their country here to Americans. So it's really fascinating how both countries approach this completely differently. And then when you think of what's happening now, the irony of it all is
I think it's just
fascinating.
Shows the wisdom that the Chinese people had
at that time. Yeah. So the film itself is narrated by Li Bai, who was a famous poet who wrote over 1,000 poems during the Tang period. And the film is a 19-minute tour of China. This choice of using this artist instead of like a political figure, again, are moves to make sure that communism and politics are not entering the pavilion. Then the re-release, the update that premiered with Reflections of China in 2003 was really important because this added sections featuring Hong Kong and Macau. And the reason they did this was because in the 90s, China had gained sovereignty and power of these two sections of China once again, because Hong Kong was a British colony for a very long time, from 1842 all the way up until 1997. There is a period in there where the Japanese occupied Hong Kong during World War II, but it was under British rule for all that time. So on July 1st, 1997, the UK officially transferred the sovereignty from them to the People's Republic of China. And that was quite a big move for England and for the UK, because this kind of marked the end of the British Empire. This was the last large colony that the UK lost. So it's interesting to learn about how World Showcase has so many educational opportunities. And with Macau was a Portuguese colony for nearly 400 years. And the Chinese government assumed power over it again on December 20th, 1999. So right at the end of the century and millennium. So that, I think the combination of those two events kind of signaled Disney to say, hey, we kind of have to update this and make these two sections stand out in the film. And they kept old sections, but they refilmed new things. So they kind of blended it all together quite nicely. And then, like we said at the top of the show, this is going to get another update soon. They announced it at D23 that they're going to build a new Circle Vision camera that's all digital. And they said it's going to be a new seamless screen. It makes me wonder if those black sections in between each screen will be disappear, or some of them, sort of thing. Yeah. So the timing of this is perfect. So I can't wait for a new one. Now let's move on to the House of Good Fortune, which is the main big store here in China. But first, I want to talk about architecture, like always. On the outside of this, you'll notice that there's a long street. It's called the Street of Good Fortune. And Disney purposely designed this that it gets more narrow as you get further back. And in the beginning, when this pavilion, I think, had a lot more foot traffic, it would kind of give guests that impression of big cities like Hong Kong and Shanghai, of, you know, being overcrowded and overpopulated. But now it's a little bit of a ghost town, because I think a lot of people kind of skip this country. The next time you go, take a look at all the details. You know, there's cute little balconies. You can kind of get a sense of a community in there. There's like a telephone booth section. If you look at the facade of that building, it's kind of an example of Portuguese architecture. So this is where you see, you know, representation of Macau and all that. Yeah. And then when you go inside the store, you'll first see this giant Buddha statue. And then this store is massive. It is. I think people forget how big this store is.
I want to say it had like 3 or 4 rooms interior and this kind of like exterior covered market area.
Yeah, the back end is kind of half inside, half outside. This is just as big as the store in Japan, I think.
Just most definitely.
But just not the same foot traffic.
Definitely. And the layout is a little bit different. So let's talk about some of the shopping highlights that are featured here.
Yeah, because I was surprised when we went.
You're going to find traditional hats, and those are more on the outside part of the market, as well as these beautiful kind of large and small paper fans, and they have beautiful calligraphy on them.
They're gorgeous, all the artwork on there.
As well as the parasols, you can find those outside as well in that kind of paper form with the calligraphy or some drawings. They were very beautiful. Tons of figurines.
So many.
Elephants, which I believe are good luck if you have one in your house, kind of facing.
I know they're good luck in India. I'm not sure about China.
Dragons.
Of course.
Buddhas.
Yeah.
And the kitty cats with the swinging little arms that you find usually at all these Chinese restaurants.
You can find them in every Chinatown in America as well.
There's so many of them. They have like a whole table full of them. Yeah. Beautiful silk coin purses with a lot of embroidery in it. It was very pretty. Swords. All sorts of armor and swords. And those I've never noticed or paid attention to. And this time it really stood out for me. It's all on that back wall behind the Buddha. They have a whole section of traditional jewelry. That surprised me. Yeah. That was, I never noticed how many necklaces and jewelry was in that store. When you go with these kind of eyes now, I'm like, wow, I never noticed how much shopping's in here. A lot of handmade china. So tea sets and vases and plates. And it was just beautiful.
And the tea sets weren't that expensive. I remember some being around $40 for like the pot and the cups and all that. And they were really pretty. I was tempted to buy one. I stopped myself.
Now, my favorite part are the robes, the traditional robes. And I love this because I had a set from when I was little and now I put it on my daughter. And they have so many in different sizes, from little kids to adults, cotton, silk, all sorts of material, and they're beautiful.
Was yours as a kid from Epcot?
Yes, it was.
Of course it was.
I had two different ones. I had a cotton one with like some people doing kung fu.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a silk one, and that's that silk one I put on my daughter now all the time.
Oh, that's the one you still have. Oh, right. Okay, so now let's move on to some of the dining. I'm going to be honest with you. This pavilion is not known for its dining so much. I don't think it's bad. It's a hit and miss to me. The booths sometimes are a miss during the festivals. The quick service is pretty good. But the thing is, you really notice Disney's overpriced food here, because I think people associate Chinese food with like a Chinese takeaway from around the corner of their house sort of thing. But yeah, Vanessa can give us a few of the practical details though, because, we have to know that.
So let's start with the Lotus Blossom Cafe. And this is their quick service restaurant. When you're facing the temple, it's located to the left towards the center of the pavilion. It's open from 11 a.m. till the park closes, and lunch and dinner is the same menu. There are only 2 appetizer options, pot stickers and egg rolls. And on average, they're about $4.50. Now, there's 7 entree choices. On average, they're $10. And some of the highlights were the orange chicken, and this one really stood out to me, which was the Hong Kong style chicken and vegetable curry. Both these dishes are, of course, served with rice. Now, there are only 2 kids meal options, and both of them are priced at $7.95. One is a sweet and sour chicken, and the other one being a combo plate of the spring rolls and the pot stickers, which sounds like my daughter's like heaven dream meal.
This is not overpriced. This is, I think, what you would expect to pay. I mean, it's actually
probably about $1 or $2 more. But
this is actually a little bit on the cheaper side for Disney quick service. It's really the table service, I think, where things get a little overpriced. But this was recently redone a few years ago, and I, from what I hear, always really good. The dining room is absolutely beautiful. This is called the Nine Dragons Restaurant, and here obviously you're going to see loads of motifs of different dragons. And I looked it up. There's each dragon does have its own symbol. I'll put a list of all of them because I'll be here forever talking about it. But each dragon is kind of a hybrid with another animal. For example, there's the Qiao Feng, which is a hybrid of a goat and a dragon. And these dragons usually like to climb and eat, and they're typically placed on the 4 corners of roofs. That's why you'll see all these dragon symbols in China as well. So always look at all those dragon details inside this restaurant. It's really pretty. But Vanessa's going to tell us about the practical stuff about this restaurant.
So the Nine Dragons is a table service restaurant, and it's located at the entrance of the pavilion to the left. So again, facing the temple to the left at the front. It's open for lunch from noon to 3:25 and open for dinner from 3:30 to 8:50. Now, this is something that I found a little odd. There are 10 appetizers at lunch, which is 2 more than they have at dinner. So I don't know if maybe traditionally at lunch you have more appetizers.
I think it's maybe just a practical thing where if you're not going to eat a whole plate of food, you can pick at little things instead.
Yeah. The average price is $9 for appetizers, and it's just basically a lot of combinations of like steamed buns or spring rolls and dumplings.
I love those steamed buns so much. They're my favorite.
Okay, so getting into the entrees, there is a ton of options at both lunch and dinner. Most of them, you're going to expect to see like Kung Pao chicken and sweet and sour pork. But for me, what I found to be a highlight, which is available at dinner, is the Nine Dragon Family Dinner Set. So essentially, this is a price fix. Each guest gets to pick from a soup, an entree, and a dessert.
And what's interesting there is that everyone can pick something different, it looks like, instead of like everyone has to kind of pick the same one. Do you have the price of this dinner set?
Yeah, it's $25 a person.
That's not bad.
It's not bad
for
at
Disney.
all.
It's under the $30 mark, which is usually the average at a table service at Disney.
Another highlight that I found at dinner, which I thought was really interesting, is the Maine lobster dinner for 2.
Perhaps not authentic, but hey, lobster.
Lobster's delicious. And it kind of goes back to that, we saw this in Mexico where they had, dining options for 2. You see this in Canada's steakhouse as well. So I like that Disney's doing this because you're on a date with your significant other and, you get to share this, beautiful meal together. So this comes with a choice of soup. The entree is served with egg noodles, and you have a choice of dessert.
Now, if sitting down for a meal is not your thing, another really good option, actually my favorite option, is to visit the Joy of Tea cart. Now, this is located when you're looking at the temple, it's behind you. It's closer to the lagoon itself.
Yeah, and it's open from 11 a.m. till park closing.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a chicken curry pocket, or you can get a pork and vegetable egg roll. And what I like here is that you can get something called the Lucky Combo. And it's priced at $11, and it comes with both of these items, the pocket and the egg roll, but it also includes a soft drink and an ice cream.
I think from a price perspective, that's one of the best snack combo options I've seen in all of World Showcase. That's a good amount of food for just $11.
Yeah.
And to share with somebody sort of thing.
Exactly. Also, they obviously have like an assortment of teas, tea smoothies, the bubble milk tea drink.
Yeah.
I love those. And there's 4 featured cocktails, and they're all priced at $8.95. And there's also their beer, which is at $6.50. Pronounce that for me. Tsingtao. It's a good beer.
It is. It's refreshing. It's light. I had recently like a strawberry smoothie thing here. It was really sweet, but it was non-alcoholic. It was the perfect refresher to the heat of Epcot, because I always feel like I'm scorching hot in World Showcase.
Especially when you're getting towards that China
because there's
area,
more concrete.
Because it's all concrete, and then you're heading into the Africa Outpost, which is just kind of like
nothing.
All concrete with no covering. So you're already kind of starting to get into the meat of World Showcase, and the sweat starts to happen.
This is the theme of this pavilion in terms of food, is that there's lots of good food for your buck. A lot of bang for your buck here. I think the combo thing is great. The quick service thing is great.
And don't rule out the Nine Dragons table service restaurant. You know, they did redo it, and I heard it's delicious.
It's also one of the easiest places to get a reservation, and sometimes the kind of place where you can show up without reservations and be seated. This and Morocco, I think, are the prime suspects of that.
Keep that in mind. And the food is very good. I don't understand why people tend to not be very adventurous. Maybe that's why they skip Morocco. But I feel with China, it's a
familiar stuff, I think, to most Americans. Now let's move on to entertainment. Let's move on to the Jeweled Dragon Acrobats. This is actually, I think, the best mini show in World Showcase, because a lot of the new shows now are just kind of a single acrobat or like a comedian, whereas this is a troupe, and I think it's got more meat to it. You know, it's quite a nice lengthy show and awesome. These guys are incredible.
Yeah.
Something I've noticed is that the troupe sometimes changes out seasonally. Like every so many months, I've seen like a new troupe of acrobats, because I've gone several times over the last year, and it's always changed a bit. So the actual acts that they perform might differ. And one that I noticed this time that I had never seen before, it was kind of funny. It was this guy and girl, they were on roller skates. I was like, what are they going to do? And they were placed on like a platform, a circular platform. And he was just constantly spinning and carrying her in different positions and stuff. And then
Terrifying.
No, you're going to love this. And then at the end, she kind of wraps her like a rope thing around her neck that attaches to his chest. And then she starts spinning as he's spinning. It was like I was dizzy just watching them. But I love this show. They usually perform 5 times a night, and the show times are usually well into the evening. Always check your time guides. But usually there's shows at 4:10, 5:10, 6:10, 7:10, and 8:10. And this is kind of adjacent to that garden on the walk up to the temple.
You can also meet Mulan in the China Pavilion, which I feel is a little hidden gem a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah.
She's got a new location. She's inside the temple off to the left. So before the pre-show for the film.
Yeah, because she used to be outside. And I used to remember in the scorching heat watching the poor girl who was Mulan sweating in that robe.
There's a nice backdrop as well. So when you're taking pictures, you're going to get a nice little background shot. And it has the film's title on top.
Yeah.
She's dressed in her formal wear, which is a purple, red, and pink robe. And she usually meets 5 times a day. Times are usually 12 p.m. to 12:40 p.m., 1 to 1:40 p.m., 2 to 2:40 p.m., 3:50 to 4:30 p.m., and 4:50 to 5:30 p.m. These are very specific times.
Yeah, but she's quite regular. Basically from 12 to 5, she's there. She's usually a very small wait. And I think with the upcoming live action version of the film, I think this will get a little bit more popular in the coming years. So yeah. Then, kind of tying back into where she's located, off to the left of the pre-show area to the film is the the Shanghai Disney Gallery. This used to be a gallery that showed these terracotta tomb warriors that's shown in the film. And I always love these galleries because they show real representations of artwork and all that of the country. Unfortunately, now Disney has taken over this gallery, but I like this one because it's about a Disney theme park. So since I'm a theme park fan, I'm okay with this one. This space is huge.
It is.
Absolutely massive.
It's like a winding room.
And what's really cool is that it's obviously a showcase of Shanghai Disney. So different corners show representation of different lands because their lands are quite different than what we're used to because they have their pirate theme land. They have their, I think it's called Treasure Cove, where they have this whitewater raft ride with this huge crocodile. And what's really cool in the gallery is that you'll see samples of merchandise. You'll also see the costumes.
I like that part.
That the cast members wear. And there's
like little models too.
Yeah, like different models that they, I think, developed while making the attractions. There's a huge kind of table that's not a model of the park. It's kind of a map. Really big. It gives you a sense of how huge this place is.
And what's cool too is they have the concept art for the lands, in the same kind of little vignette.
And up until now, this was like the only place where you could see the, Tron at the Florida theme parks, because their little Tomorrowland section shows the Tron coaster with the Tron ears, but we will soon be getting Tron. So if you want a sneak peek of what the Tron coaster will be like in Tomorrowland coming to Magic Kingdom, head to China because you can see a nice little, I think there's even a video. I know there is a video of the whole park. I'm sure there's a section.
Of course. It's like one of their biggest attractions at the park.
Yeah. So that is a wrap for the China Pavilion at Epcot. I think one of, not the most underrated, maybe the second most underrated pavilion in World Showcase. It's always quite empty, which is kind of sad, but hopefully this new film will generate some more foot traffic into the pavilion. So thank you very much for listening in this week to Beyond the Kingdoms. Please stay tuned next week because we're going to Animal Kingdom. We're doing an update to our Touring Animal Kingdom episode. We did these last summer, I think. I think we did one for each park, giving you a breakdown of the best fast pass strategy for different groups, highlighting the best places to eat. And now with Pandora open, we felt that we needed to update this. We waited a good month or so for Pandora to be open to kind of see how the crowds have changed.
If queues slowed down,
Because this has drastically changed how you tour Animal Kingdom.
Definitely.
So we're going to give you full tips on the best fast pass strategies, how to, the highlights of the best food to eat here. This is a great park to visit. I mean, it always was, but now it's
on another level. Yeah. Definitely.
So make sure you tune in then. And until then, we hope you have a fantastic week. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.